Hello and good day, everybody. Leon here with a quick recording. So this is my recording, my apology recording, for not getting this Monday's recording up on time. So hopefully you guys understand that I am pretty much I happen to be on a schedule now up on Twitch, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays throughout the weekend. So I have a intense schedule right now too. So I won't be quitting podcasts, which that's not my intentions. However, my least of my excuse was I just haven't got up on time, and what delayed me the most was probably adding the music onto the episode, and pretty much the episode ended up becoming much longer than I had to. So I said, okay, I'll just edit this probably later or so. I'll have it published on Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get around doing it on Tuesday because I was just kind of slacking off and I didn't get around to doing it. And then Monday, I was actually feeling very, very tired not to work on any audio whatsoever. So hopefully you guys understand that and willingly enough to understand where I'm going through right now, which as a Twitch streamer and as a podcaster right now. But overall, enough delay. Let's get on right to the show and enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Before we begin on today's episode, on episode 135 of the LBRY podcast, a tech podcast, I wanted to just go ahead and bring a word of our sponsors real quick, and one of them is Podbean. Podbean is a hosting provider that I've been using for now close to a year, and I love Podbean. You can post as many episodes as you want within the whole month of whatever month it may be. You can post the episode on Podbean and LBRY. It's a hosting provider as well. I use LBRY for statistics, and both of them work great. I use both of them for many different reasons, and I know you may have different reasons to use LBRY as well, but LBRY has been a great help when they've helped me on the WordPress plugin, and I love what you can do with the WordPress LBRY plugin. It is fantastic and it's great to use and it's wonderful. Last and not least, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to the browser I use all the time, Brave. Brave is a wonderful browser I use all the time for personal and everyday uses, and I love using Brave. Brave is a great browser that I think it's much more open source than Chrome and Firefox. And what I like about the most about Brave is you don't have a big corporation's track upon you, and it already has a ad blocker, which is pretty decent. And every single month, Brave is always going to be looking into upgrading their browser on the latest and greatest updates on the stable version, and they're doing this all the time too. If you are a developer on Brave, I encourage anybody to get on board with Brave. It does have the similar Chromium features that you would use with Google, and it does have a Chrome store that anyone can use and basically use your plugins, your browser plugins right off of that browser right there too. It is fantastic and works well. Go ahead and check it out. Check out Brave. Let's get on with today's episode. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to the LBRY podcast 135 of the LBRY podcast. All the things you need to know about technology, news, resources, and opinionated updates on what's going on in the world of technology, what you need to know. Man, so pretty much I'm going to be talking over USB this week because due to microphone issues, it's not a major microphone issue. I would say more of a headset issue because I'd rather listen to myself with both earpieces instead of one. Frustrating enough too as it is, but we're gonna go ahead and work it out the best as I can. And I actually like analog. audio going through the XLR connection going through instead of USB. But hey, anyways, if I sound really good, you guys let me know through the comments down below. And it is my first time going through recording through digital, straight digital through USB, which is nice. But I think what I noticed with USB, I think it makes it really, really cool because you can get it actually does sound clear. Now, however, if you're connecting to a analog source such as a audio interface or mixer, you pretty much have more options through the gains, which I like about that too. But I know we're gonna work it as best as I can. But if you can not hear me too well, please let me down in the comments down below if you've noticed any difference. So, man, this week I'm gonna definitely catch up with things I missed since last week and the week before that too. But I'm sure that I'm not gonna drag it too much here, and I'm sure the last episode may not be as interesting, or the fact that I did brought the politics into the show right there too. And however, like I've said, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I do apologize anyone that heard it since last week. And I know as of this week, we're definitely coming back to the realms of technology, which is going to be very good. And that's one thing I like about myself, is try to diversify myself and things what's going on in the world, technology, even sometimes out of technology as well too. Because at this point, we all know that there's always going to be politics embedded through our technology, unfortunately enough. But some things has to be said, and so you have to really say it. Now, before we get onto this week's topic, I know I'm gonna be getting onto again with the privacy concerns as far as the new things that's been coming out as of lately with iOS. So iOS 14 just came out over the weekend. So I know 14 is one of the newest Apple's iOS updates, and we're definitely going to get into the iOS updates shortly after. And also we're definitely going to go ahead and talk about the side. I think what's good about the iOS 14 and the pros and cons on that too. What we're going to get onto into this episode. Now, I am going to be, in just a little bit of warning, I will be a bit of a sidetrack what's coming on the episode. So before we get onto the main topic here, which I'm going to be getting onto pretty shortly. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention right here, since even though I mentioned I'll be podcasting more like probably 3 times a day, which it is pretty true. However, my sleep schedule has been a bit off, and I've been waking up early on and off. So, and it's been pretty difficult to get up, and I will admit too, like for me trying to get up and get myself straightened and trying to get back into the jobs field and right here too. Now, that's one thing for me to say. And also also for everybody that don't follow me on Twitter, actually I will have the link down below, which is pretty much my schedule for this week is going to be 5 p.m. through 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone. So that's where I'm going to be streaming for my Twitch, and I've been pretty much focused on grinding out through Twitch and working on my channel. So as of lately, I've been streaming a mixture of games such as Fall Guys, Among Us, and then more so on World of Warships, and I like them all three. So that's pretty much a good mix of games I've been playing around, and also some games I haven't played on stream. So mostly offline streaming, and so something I would like to get on board, and also my goal for this month, if possible. Looking forward to getting becoming an affiliate with Twitch coming this month, and I need about 3 or more average viewers. Something that I myself I'm just going to be working on tremendously, on and on, for this week and the weeks afterwards too. So I know that there's going to be challenges of my schedule where I cannot be on all the time, but I am definitely going to work into it too. Work into a schedule where I can stay consistent and everybody can join. So that's something I am gonna be doing consistently this week too, and also learning to sleep early enough so that way I can get enough energy to get online for the afternoon and work my way through it too, so that way I can get in as well. And I know this week, actually, I've been busting my butt off on Rise of the Tomb Raider. First time playing it, and I know it's actually some years old, but it's not super super old. So I mean, this game came out around 2006, 2017. But I really enjoyed Rise of the Tomb Raider, and this is pretty much the second sequel to the first Tomb Raider reboots. I've been enjoying it. I like the title. I think it is an amazing game. The storyline, the plot is actually phenomenally great, and it's well written. But honestly, though, it is super fun. I mean, the mechanics in the game, it's very similar to the previous installations of the game, and I think I find it really nice and refreshing how they modernized this reboot, which is super cool in my opinion. And I'm sure many people may have different opinions on this too, but what I've understand, it has been received very positively online and everywhere else a couple years back, and I pretty much enjoyed the new title. Personally, I think the title, it is a very good, well written story. The gameplay is fun, and actually it's been pretty much using the over the shoulders camera, like something you see with RE4 and Gears of War series, and I've enjoyed it a lot since I played it since I would say last week, and it's been nice. And I'm still have a long ways to go. Unfortunately, I can't just grind through the game within the whole hour because it takes many hours. And also, adding along with that too, you have the side mission, side quest, I should say, when you add on to the game itself. And so that's what's been pretty busy. And also, there's going to be one day out of the week that I'm going to have to pretty much step aside Rise of the Tomb Raider Thursday, because season 2 of Fall Guys season 2 is coming, and so far no luck getting the crown. And it is a very challenging game. I mean, as simple as the game looks, to go through the wipeout courses, I call it. It is fun, no doubt. I love the wipeout courses, and I think it makes it really, really entertaining, really fun to go through these challenges too. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention with Fall Guys, I think Fall Guys, I say this, that it is very entertaining, but this game is pretty much for everyone. You've got to experience the game. You've got to try out the game and enjoy it. I mean, this is not like a kid's game, right? It's not for kids. It's pretty much for adults as well. Anyone can play it, and I've enjoyed the experience of the Fall Guys, and I can't wait what they're going to be putting for season 2 coming up on for next season. That's going to be coming up this Thursday, October 8th. That's coming up pretty soon. So 3 more days, and pretty much hopefully I can get this podcast out really soon, before the date. So I'm really happy about that, and I'm recording this on a Monday, so I want to get my podcast out as soon as possible. So, but yeah, that's something to be said. And then also, there are going to be tons of games going to be on sale on Steam this week, so hopefully I can snag Elder Scrolls before the sale is over, before the price shoots up back to how much is going to be, like $40 or $50, which I would like to get Elder Scrolls Online before the sale is over, but we will see. We don't really know until I get it. So that being said, I think there are so many titles to even keep up with. In fact, I did stream a little bit of Star Wars Squadron last week. That was back Friday. I've enjoyed a bit of Squadron. My only issues with Squadron, when you're playing with the controls, it can be funny playing with the control because the camera, not the camera, excuse me, the having to maneuver the ships, it's kind of difficult if you've never played a Star Wars a flight simulation game like that before too. Like a dogfight, it's going to be quite difficult having to jump right off the bat. So you want to go ahead and have some practice before going through a dogfight, online multiplayer, or a quick match. That's just me and my take right there too. So for me, I would say yes, give Squadron a try. I think it is a great installment of the Star Wars series, no doubt, and this is pretty much coming from EA and is both available on Steam now and Origins. Story I want to go and bring up to every one of my listeners, for anyone that's pretty much has heard about this by now, which is Apple's new iOS update for iOS 14, and which is pretty much active on all quarter of all active Apple devices after only 5 days. So this is really interesting, coming from the Apple camp. Now, I will say that I'm not the biggest iOS fan, I would say. Now, it is really good. I would say kind of a good device where I think a lot of people, a large amount of people are using it, and I think that's cool. It is a lot of people using iOS nowadays too. Now, I've heard that not everyone has updated on 14 for several reasons, and I will get to that into a moment right there too, and what updates that came into iOS 14. So let's go ahead and read this through, and this is coming from Tech Spot. So I will definitely give my opinions as we go along right there too, but let's go on and read it through, which says Apple has never had a problem with mobile OS fragmentation, a trend that continues this year, even as new iPhones haven't launched on time due to COVID-19. How will Apple's pending launch impact the numbers moving forward? We'll find out soon enough. It's taken just 5 days for the latest version of Apple's mobile operating system to research more than a quarter of active devices. iOS 14, which arrived a day after Apple unveiled a new models of the Apple Watch and iPad, is running approximately 26.73% of active devices, according to the latest statistics from analytics firm Mixpanel. So that's cool. That is a cool thing right there too. That you're seeing a lot of people using that using number 14, which I mean it's been some time now already. And now I definitely want to give out the news that especially what we're seeing with the iOS too. So let's take a look here what it comes down to, what new features that we're already seeing here with iOS 14, which in this article, the deserted.com. Now, one of the things it actually listed right here are the new home screen designs that I'm going to get to it right now, which here on the designs, which gives a lot more people freedom now to customize the designs for this iOS version, which I think it's probably a good idea and about time that they're doing it, and especially I don't know what took Apple so long to do this, because for me, my opinion with this is, they should have had done this a long time ago, and don't understand, well, how come they didn't do it before then, and this was an idea that a lot of people were asking for, and it's really cool what a lot of people are doing with their home screens now. And so I'm just going to read through a bit of the article, which here and I'm seeing a lot of the pictures too, that what unique designs people did, especially with the, now you have the widgets for iOS 14. I think the widgets are looks amazing, that what custom widgets you can add on to it, so on and so forth. So one of the things I want to add on to the iOS 14 installation that first dropped, which is the most exciting thing, is the widgets. Now the previous iOSs didn't have widgets, nor did it have the custom home screen. I mean, it's just about time. Very honestly, it should have had that a long time ago. And now I don't know what to expect from this one here too. And I remember, if you wanted to add home screens to this too, and I know it was illegal back then to do it back from the previous updates, like the earlier iOS S's, you could not do custom backgrounds or home screen. In order for anybody to do that, you would have to go in on the iPhone and jailbreak it, just like you would do. And also it is a bit of a complicated process, but you can get through it and enjoy these jailbreak open jailbreak stuff you can do right there too. And it is amazing, and what you can do with the with iOS now. I think no longer you can jailbreak it too. You can still do it, and jailbreaking it's still available. And plus, Apple is still a closed source company, and that's something with what you can do with Apple. There are some certain limitations that you'll have to deal with right here too. But at least I would say it's giving the options for users to make custom home screens. Now, I don't have an iOS device, so I really can't play around with it too, nor I'm going to end up spending $1,000 on a phone. Sure, the quality of the camera may be great, but what's the use of having to spend more money on a device that you would have to end up paying lease for how many months, which was like 36 months to pay it off? Which, come on, I would never want to do that for a phone. For a car payment, maybe, but again, $1,000 is nothing to sneeze upon right there too. It's a lot of money that everyone have to work through it too, and it's something I would not ever spend it. However, with the article, it shows, which it's giving a lot of people different options. Like, for instance, one of my favorites on the tweet itself from a user shows a neon icon, which I like right there. I like neon lights, the night lights, which makes it really fun to just to go through, customizing the way you want to on iOS. And then let's take a look over here, which that's still one of my favorites. And then you have the 90s look. The 90s look is far from cool, and I like the different styles of what you can do with it. And let's see here, My Studio Chibi 90s anime aesthetics, and home screen, which I think the home screen for this style, it looks great. Now, if you are a Studio Chibi fan out there, or that loves anime, you got that choice right there too. And now, will I say that Apple is stepping up for a direction which is good? Probably right there too. It makes it attractive right there too. Also, my personal take on this is that you have different home screens for different styles. I like about that too, and it actually gives more choices, which is great. For me, I see that too. Now, I know this is not the first time Apple has done something like done something like this. In fact, Android was successful enough to do something like this. And one of the first OSs to place that for Android users. Now, I will agree with someone. I actually joined in a live stream, and someone has said this. Very intelligent young lady, and she pretty much knows her stuff. And one of the things I would say for what makes it so difficult for people developing on Android is when you are developing code on the device, you pretty much have to favor it for one for Samsung device, LG device, Motorola, so on and so forth too. And with iOS, it is actually a lot easier to develop, and that's why a lot of developers go to iOS to develop. Sure, and I'm sure a lot of people may have different opinions about it and different ideas on it, and I'm sure I may be wrong on that too. So you can put your comments down below if you want to add on to your opinion about it too. Probably I might be right or wrong about that too. But that's why I've been reading and hearing about other devs about this too. Now, Apple is not the most open, friendliest Apple Store marketplace right there too. Now you have tons of free apps, and then you have paid apps. The approval service, however, I see it's a pain to go through it too, and there are certain legalese you have to go through it as well. Now, the Apple Store marketplace, you have to make sure that you have to read the guide and the contents, what you can post on to the App Store or on the Google Play Store. To me, at once upon a time, Google was actually much friendly to post like over a decade ago on applications for developers what you want to pretty much put out there. And to me, now it's not the norm anymore, unfortunately, because the way I see it, though Google claims it is open source, now they become very totalitarian in a way that what you can post. And even though your app may be popular, and for instance, I think there always going to be approval for both Google's Android and Apple's iOS. So, however, anyone can take this. You've got to look in what you can post on your Apple's onto your application. So that's one thing I have to say. My main criticism for Apple, which it's still not open source. It's still a very closed source environment. In the development, you have to go through with Shift or Swift. Excuse me. Like with Swift, you have to go through everything with Swift. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna have to go through development. I mean, developing iOS applications, and also the development process is a tad bit different going through iPad as well, from my understanding. And I am not a developer. I've just read those things online, what developers do for in their daily basis and how they have to deal with. But if I've gone through the footsteps of other devs, what they are going through, one thing I can say is that developing apps is not the most easiest process. There's a lot of code that you have to get involved in. There's tons of explaining, which I won't explain too much about it right there too. Now, let's get on to the real deal on what is going on. For me, I still criticize Apple as much as I criticize with Google, and we're gonna get on Google pretty shortly. One of the things I would say with iOS, nobody is talking about the fact that there was actually a contact tracing app for COVID-19 where it was actually separate. You had to download the application, and a lot of people didn't do that, unfortunately. And so a lot with many of these companies and how they're working on placing these applications now is pretty much forced upon you, where you have to go ahead and and it's pretty much automatically updated right through your phone. So if you've already updated to 13.7 on your iOS, that means the COVID tracing app is already COVID tracing stuff is already placed into your phone already, into your system. And if you have Android 10.0 or higher, then it's already built into your system already. So unless you downgrade your system with a downgrader, then you can pretty much try to get away with it. And I'm not going to even get through the technical aspects of it too, trying to explain it through detail, because it is definitely long and it's definitely a complicated, very complicated wording to explain to all my listeners how to do it. But I suggest do your research if you don't want any of this crud out there too. And one of the things I will say nobody talks about is that I think it's definitely becomes a violation where you have Apple and Google conspire to work together on having to build this upon the OS. And so that destroys technically the freedom of what you can do. And I think a lot of the big governments now are buying into extending lockdowns, making life even worse as it is in parts of the world, especially first world countries like US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. 5 big countries I'm just going to name on top of my head. I'm sure there's other countries are just going through the massive same shit that's going through all over the world. And I think they are extending this so they can full an agenda. And now, and also, even especially with this week, you have Belgium doctors and Italian and German doctors are coming out with these statistics now, update statistics saying that the rate of COVID is a very much higher scale, right there, a higher scale of survival. And the way I find it so difficult is the belief are people are still buying the contrary beliefs of what is happening, even though you have definitely hard evidence to back this stuff already, saying that this is not as deadly as the flu. I mean, the flu, however, it is a bit worse a little bit worse, because the survival rate of the flu is actually 0.1% chance. Well, they were making the hard evidence about COVID, which the survival rate of COVID is so high, so high. The survival rate is pretty much 0.00002% if you ignore the 2% rounding error. And then again, who is really dying of this too? And there's not way too many evidence of people dying from COVID. And that's where I will tell you my part on my story. Especially, I went to a hospital back in April. In the hospital where I live in my state, they didn't have people filled in upon hospitals. And I think wherever is going on, this is not the contrary truth to it too. And for the science experts right here too, I'm sure that the very same science experts already know what's going on. This is pretty much just a bunch of baloney, bunch of bollocks, whatever you want to call this. This is beyond reasoning. And I think having to install these devices in order to secure yourself from an unknown virus, which there's no hard evidence backing out that this is the most deadliest thing, which it isn't. The mainstream actually has destroyed the trust of so many people. I'm sure a lot of people are still believing the story behind this too, but I think it's become to a point that this is all a charade, a theater, as I can put it this way. And I know I may be going to a little bit of the political aspect of this too, but however, this virus has become very political, and as much as our technology wise too. And one thing I will put right down for sure is that, I mean, if you have any of those devices like iOS or Android, there's pretty much no escaping what's to come. And especially if you call yourself a fanboy of either of these devices, I have no respect for fanboys. And I liked back in the day when I did call myself an Android dude. Not anymore. For me, the whole fanism has become extremely I don't know, extremely divided on the technical aspects, where a lot of people want to spread themselves into iOS fans versus the Android fans. So the question becomes is that how can you secure yourself? All that, right? And to me, at this point, if you try to use a custom ROM or degrade degrade what's the best way to put it this way is downgrade the device. Good luck with that too. There are so much you're gonna have to find a professional that knows how to use custom ROMs and downgrade the OS from whatever previous operating system that you may have used. Sure, if you like the Android operating system, then you're gonna have to use a custom ROM for Android. If you still like the iOS environment, then best thing to do is go and jailbreak it too. Best thing to do it. And to me, in my opinion too, is smartphones are still here to stay. I think there's pretty much no escaping. Now, if you were to use something like a dumb phone, which pretty much there's no OS installed on dumb phones, well, hopefully not. But if you are using a dumb phone, and just probably a regular flip phone, pretty much an easy way to explain it, then you can get away from it too. However, if you're using a smartphone, you have to use a smartphone because you work for a business or you work for a consulting company for IT reasons. There are so many people using smartphones right there too, but I really encourage anybody that is using smartphones is try not to have it near you of all times, because at the same rate it's both a privacy issue and a health issue, having to go to your screen all the time, and the screen time on it does affect your eyes a lot. So it's best not to have your phone near you all the time. And I think the one of the best things you can look for if you're going to protect yourself health wise, or probably avoid having to stick right to your pockets, or probably use a Faraday cage. And that's one thing I will recommend to all my listeners. Now, I do want to briefly mention a little bit about Android, and then I'm going to get into the next topic of Australia and how they're dealing with the COVID situation, which, though I am going to be stepping out the realms of technology, but it is important to state it as it is. Now, Android, as last week, there's been a report from alternative applications. A step aside from Google, you have this thing called LBRY.tv, and LBRY.tv has been around for a couple of years, and as of recent, they did released a application on the Google Play Store. The Google Play Store, and I've used it for a very, very, very long time. I think I've started using it much more when more than the app, much more than the YouTube application too. I mean, sometimes I have to switch back and forth because there's not a lot of creators using LBRY, unfortunately. And to me, I find LBRY to be a better alternative to sources like BitChute. For me, BitChute doesn't have itself established. That's a bit unfortunate. And I would agree with one of the tech guys. I think it's called EEV Blog. I would have to put the link down below onto my channel here on the Podbeam. And for all your favorite podcast apps, you can check on the description down below. Even he stated that the curation, search curation on BitChute is not great, and I agree. I think I will say I will 100% agree with him. Is they are definitely shooting themselves down the foot, and they're not even spreading their content, or even in the home screen, that is, and it seems very unfriendly. I would love to see curation. I mean, what BitChute are saying that we don't want to censor people. They want to bring every content creator out there. But how about curate the home screen that makes it look much friendlier than it is? To me, you had definitely different organizations doesn't look too friendly. Especially, I'll briefly say like the KKK or the or other like groups like neo-Nazi content, which to me that doesn't look friendly at all. And if somebody were to step in a website like that too, it would not be the most friendliest thing. And I'd like to see things probably curated. I mean, curation is not censorship, and hopefully they should be probably get it. But unfortunately enough, they don't really get what curation is, and that's where I find that's what BitChute loses me so much about it right there too. Because if you want to be the most alternative to YouTube, then why not do that? I mean, pretty much have a big reach to everybody, and that's what I don't get. And then the layout of the home screen on BitChute is terrible, very very terrible. So back with LBRY, and they've had released an application for some time, and I couldn't believe this myself. And I looked up on their video on the LBRY channel up on LBRY.tv. One thing I will say is that what loses Google for me, and I do not praise them for doing this. I think there's applications that they should let go and let live, and giving people an option if they want to use YouTube, LBRY, Daily Motion, whatever, right? What it does come down on is I think they are afraid of competition, and that really defeats me in having to use the Google Play Store. However, I still use Google Play Store because not a lot of developers are looking into jumping into the F-Droid, which you can have so much options to put applications for free or for paid if you want to, and that really hurts developers right there too. And I think developers should just jump on the F-Droid train and post their application right on the F-Droid marketplace. At this point, this is the most freest marketplace you can just put yourself out there, and that's where I think developers should start opening things like that too. Even Signal is actually on the Play Store, right, and on iOS. One of the main things I would say is that those developers should start smarting up, because I think one of these days they've gonna have to realize that these are not the most freest and open platforms. If you want to publish your applications on iOS and Google Android, they are not. I once upon a time, Android was probably friendly throughout the earlier days. You could publish things out without the restrictions, and however, things have changed probably for more on the worst than for the good, because honestly, where Google pointed out on the LBRY application where it was showing pornographic images, and then the creator of LBRY actually say that this was not explicit images, nor was it pornographic. I think where Google looked on it was that they were doing a screenshot of it, and it was just probably two guys making out, right? Simply making out. It was not complete nudity on its own. I find there was a problem with that too. Look, if you want to post nudity, look, I encourage anyone to do that through a Pornhub or an X Hamster or whatever, right? Wherever you do your post your nudity. But besides that, it's just absurd for Google to take away an application on the marketplace. And I think what they want to do is start having people to stick onto their lousy messengers, which is not completely encrypted enough too. And that's something I will pretty much encourage people to get on board in getting their open source applications. Or if you want secure messaging, go to Signal or Sessions, which I'm definitely going to go and get on board with both of them too. That's where I find difficult for people to get on it right there too. But at the end of the day, I think these two companies are going to look into getting themselves um, and put themselves in a monopoly. But what I call it is pretty much not just a monopoly. It's pretty much a duopoly with both companies, and you only have two choices. And I'm not even going to try to even think about it too much. In fact, I love to get onto the development world myself and to start developing apps and study up on it and look into it, because at this point, open source is a very much a must. And I think opening up to a third operating system for the mobile would be very nice. In fact, there must be something out there already that's already open source. I don't know which one it may be, but I think the privacy guy may have found a solution to the problem that we have currently at the moment. Now, that's one thing. If you're using these horrendous marketplaces, I think it would be about time to start looking into other alternatives. And if you don't know how to switch onto F-Droid or another marketplace for other alternative for the App Store, I say do some research, look up, study upon it, because it'd be best to look up and do some research. I encourage anybody to do that, quite honestly. And because the more you learn, the better. Because it's going to be about time that we can see a third competitor in the marketplace. Even before BlueBerry was a competitor, but not anymore. And there's no hardware makers going to be developing for BlueBerry. I mean, BlueBerry's out of business. You do not see Palm OS anymore. It's shut down, out of business right there too. Nor you see Nokia on business anymore too. Nokia is not making, it doesn't have the OB store what it used to before, back in the heyday of the 90s. It's not like that anymore. And now you have these dual monopolies too. It's pretty much placing them on a stranglehold right there too. And look, and I remember early back then I was just like, oh, I love the touch. The touchscreen was okay back then. It wasn't like the best back then for Android nor for iPhone. I actually happen to like the physical keyboards when it was built into these older phones. Now you do not have that option anymore too, with any of these makers anymore, like Samsung hardware, LG, whatever it may be. You just don't have many of the options to install an OS unless you know how to do it. Pretty much unfortunate. So yeah. Then lastly, I wanted to go ahead and bring up a story I want to bring about Australia. In Australia, it has been covered with a couple of outlets out there too. And a lot of people aren't really talking the truth about Australia, of what is going on. Australia is getting themselves hurt with more on the authorities than on the virus itself. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize what the heck is going on. Even the mess in Australia is not. They say that the pandemic in the COVID-19 pandemic is bad. People should start wearing a mask. Blah blah blah. But I'm going to be the one to say this. I mean, outside the contrary too. In fact, you cannot even say about the Australian government, what they are doing about what's going on too. And you cannot even talk about the amount of censorship you can really do to protect yourself. And then plus, about a year or two ago, Australia announced that they are banning encryption. So what does that mean? That means their freedom's already lost at this point. So if you were to talk about the Australian government on a Facebook post, so if you talk bad about them, you are gonna get cut off from the government, and there's no way to defend yourself. You're gonna have officials knocking at your door. And so there was a situation on a pregnant woman that said something about the uh, prime minister there. What's his face? Daniel Andrews. That's Limeball. Pretty much are now prosecuting people for what the situation is about. Plus, it is not killing millions of Australians. What they are saying. Look, I believe the COVID virus is real, but the way they are handling this is really terrible. And I think they're bumping the cases um, exponentially wrong about this too. In fact, my personal opinion about this is, I think the virus may have just died already throughout the beginning, right at the very beginning before it started. To me, I don't even think we even have a huge large of cases of pandemic case numbers. To me, it's not a pandemic. It's more of a case-demic at this point. And that's where I find very difficult to realize and understand what's going on with Australia. And come on, people. The people from down under is going to have to start waking up sooner or later, because at this point they are definitely losing their freedoms from the hard lockdowns. And in fact, if you're an Australian and listen to this, I'm sure that you guys know that you can't leave your country. And what they are saying is that they're going to end up extending the lockdowns 4 years. I mean, come on. Well, I mean, it is absurd. And if you try to leave your country, you most likely can't, because it is an awful situation that how they're extending this lockdown. This is, I mean, entirely bullshit from the very beginning. What they're doing, that in itself, they cannot continue this madness anymore. And come on down under, get yourself together on this, because at this point you are definitely going to lose your freedoms. And in fact, here in the USS of A, I think that's what it is going to about to happen, is continue the extended lockdowns from most of the states like New York, California, Miami, Chicago, Wisconsin, so on and so forth, that they're going to end up having to extend this. And it's pretty much beyond madness that they have to extend it. And you got to look into, these people are, what they are going through. Everybody. A lot of people are going to have to say, where is the point that this madness should end? And I would agree. This madness should end. In fact, even there was a study going on right now. In fact, especially for the younger generation, Generation Z. 1 out of 3 people, even the Generation Z, the younger, especially the teens and the preteens. In fact, there's like a 16 to 25-year-olds that are saying that they are not confident about the future that they're holding, which quite disturbs me. You know, they're looking at this, their future in a much negative light. What's going on, especially in the UK, and which is the madness is still going on. And I've actually talked a little bit about this between this with a friend in the UK, and I'm sure they are really upset. They are continuing to lock down, and I question the severity about this too. In fact, even what I mentioned earlier before about the Belgian, German, and Italian doctors, they say that the extended lockdowns is going to do much more damage in personal health than it would be, and what people are saying in the media. And I think at this point, look at what you're looking up onto, look into the truth. You have to look into real truth at this point, because there's so much are being covered up on COVID-19. And by the way, I am not saying this as a conspiracy theory. I'm saying this as a realist, what is going on. And to me, I definitely look at the privacy, the world privacy that is going to be, and there's so much going on in which it's pretty much unreal at this point. The fact they are saying that, oh, the UK numbers are going to start coming high throughout the flu season, mixed along with COVID-19, and then the US, which I honestly don't believe in the numbers anymore too, because the more they repeat stuff like this too, the less I believe it. And to me, I think millions of people, there's still billions of people out there still believing this stuff. But I think there's people are waking up and say, how is it that they're gonna, how can these people can take advantage out of people and cutting borders? And I myself, I love remote learning. I love things that you can do to work at home without having to go through an office each and every day too. However, we are all human, and definitely we gotta get out. We gotta go out shopping, do things like that too. And I think what makes it so upsetting is that people cannot do things on a daily basis, especially like I'm gonna give the example of New York. New York has one of the most strictest rules, including the state of California. I don't like where this is going, especially. And I think there's actually a point that there's people in Los Angeles already. They are fleeing that town in masses. They're actually bringing themselves together and saying, there's a lot of people in the homeless population, and even the state doesn't even know what they're doing at this point. They really don't. So there's tons of states out there. They have no idea. They are trying to increase this more and more as they go. But anyways, I'm not going to get into the dirt of it too, but I do think a lot of people are starting to wake up what this is going about. I will say, in credit in my state, as of right now, they are not pushing the restrictions super high, which is really good. At least there's people out there that can go out and be a little bit free here in my home state right there too. And I would say due to Florida's credit, they pretty much lift off the restrictions. And so pretty much the governor of Florida has opened it up where anybody can go anywhere and they don't have to be locked inside their homes. And let's just be honest, Florida is a very hot state. And I think there's a lot of people that love going out in Florida, especially in South Beach, down in Miami, Florida, down in South Florida, right? You've got other people that want to go out and get themselves out there. And I agree. I mean, a lot of people they don't want to be locked in their own homes all the time. And in Florida, there's a lot of older population, which I understand because of the retirement benefits. But at this point, I think a lot of people are definitely frustrated where we are definitely going to. And imagine if they started to say, okay, let's extend the lockdown for 3 more months, 6 more months, or another year or two. And if it becomes longer, how people are going to do things in their lives and get themselves out. A lot of people want to do stuff. They want to do stuff with their own lives, instead of having to be locked up all the time. And that's where things are going to start to become very authoritarian, and it's going to make things much difficult when people are trying to travel. So that's how I'm going to put it here in today's show. And as far as I can tell, is I have pretty much talked about a mixture of both the politics and technology onto it too. But next week we're definitely going to talk more on the tech world and what's going on, the good and the bads, everything that comes down to all in today's society in tech. But if it's not next week, probably I'll end up posting another podcast episode much sooner. But we will see. Thank you so much for coming in, taking the time to listen. Let me know about your comments on the Podbeam comments down below, or put your reviews on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. What do you think about all what I've said about iOS, Google Android, and the extended lockdowns? What's going on across the world where you're living? Anyways, folks, that'll be all for today's episode. I hope you have a great rest of your day, the rest of your Monday, or wherever you are listening to me on. Take care. Have a good day.